Hey, what's happening, everybody? It's me, Crazyfrankie, and I'd like to welcome you to my Week 11 4 key game picks of the 2020 NFL season. Now, I apologize. This video was supposed to be up yesterday. I was supposed to get all this done, but I haven't been feeling well lately, and I'm hoping that it's not what I think it is. But I'm still here. I'm doing just fine. I'm just gotta manage through what life throws at you. Anyways. Before we talk about week number 11, I don't want to get into too many thoughts from week number 10, and what I'm going to do in this video here, as we're getting inches closer to the end of November, normally I post up at the bottom of the screen the current playoff seedings as we go into week 11. I will do that next week. I will do that in week number 12. I thought about doing that this week, but I just want to get this video up as quickly as possible, and I don't want to use up too much time talking about week number 11. Obviously, thoughts from week number, thoughts from week number 10. The injury bug has really hurt a lot of NFL players, and obviously the big one was Drew Brees last week. Injured ribs and a punctured lung. I don't even know how he managed to play in part of that game despite that injury, but it really brings up a huge question, especially with the Saints clinging to first place so far in the NFC South. And knowing the Buccaneers, I mean, they had a big win last week in a game that they had to have to order to get back into contention, obviously to keep pace not only with the Saints, but as well as a playoff spot. But right now, and look at it now for the Saints right now, they got a quarterback situation now. Who do you go with? Do you go with Jameis Winston, or do you go with, they said, the future quarterback with Hill? Personally, though, I really think they need to go with Hill, because I don't know if I want to put it. I mean, we've seen Jameis Winston a lot in his career with the Bucs. He didn't play all that well with them. He only had one good season, but other than that, he's nothing more than an interception machine. I personally think that, well, look, a lot of people will say, well, if you put Hill at quarterback, Sean Payton will have to redesign the offense. You could say that, but knowing Sean Payton, he's the head honcho. He knows how to control that Saints team. And I look at it this way. I personally think they need to go with Hill, because he's the I really think that somewhere down the line at the end of the season, somehow, whatever the Saints do, what if they get eliminated early in the playoffs or somehow make it to the Super Bowl, personally, you need to keep Hill, because this is your future quarterback. Knowing what we saw what happened with Drew Brees, that is more likely his last season. This is no doubt his last season in the Saints uniform. He obviously needs to, his health should matter a lot more nowadays, and and that's how I personally see it. I just think that Hill should be the guy, because I don't know if I trust Winston. Winston was always throwing interceptions. He just couldn't be able to be a quarterback as he was in college. But other than that, I look at it from a standpoint, it is just I really think that Hill needs to take over for the Saints instead of Winston. I look at other teams around. Boy, I mean, when I talked about possible blowouts, I was surprised at the Packers game that the Jaguars made it a football game in Lambeau. I was really surprised at that. I thought for sure that the Packers would have blown out the Jaguars, and that didn't happen. They ended up playing a very competitive game, which I was so wrong about. And how about the Colts making a statement on the Titans? I picked the Titans. I thought for sure the running game really was gonna dominate that entire football game, but the Colts defense did a fantastic job in really putting a stop to Henry. And of course, the Hail Mary pass from Murray to Hopkins. It's a highlight reel, obviously the play of the season. I'm pretty sure that we all watched it once already. That was incredible. When it looked like the Bills were going to win that game, and then all of a sudden, hold my beer, here comes Murray. He throws into the end zone. Hopkins with a miracle catch, and the Cardinals ended up winning that football game. Wow. That is something. Anyways, let's talk about week number 11. All right, let's begin with key game number 1. Going to the NFC West, the Thursday night game. It is the Cardinals versus the Seahawks. This is the third time in 3 weeks already that I'm going to talk about the Seahawks. And I know a lot of you are going to say, don't you think that you should be talking about somebody else? But this is a key game for a couple of reasons. Number one, if Seattle wins this game, beating the Cardinals, and if the Buccaneers beat the Rams, which is another key game I will talk about, the Seahawks go back to first place. So this game is huge for Seattle as well as Arizona. Right now it's a three-way tie in the NFC West with the Seahawks, the Cardinals, and the Rams. Now, Murray in that big upset win last week, 22 of 32, 245 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interceptions against the Bills. Wilson in a very dismal game against the Rams, 22 of 37, 248 yards, no touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. Obviously, interceptions have really hurt Wilson. Obviously, that offensive line has broken down a lot for the Seahawks team. Seahawks are actually a 3.5-point favorite, believe it or not. But it is really tough to say now with the Seahawks team. They have played terribly the last 2 weeks. Have they figured this out? I don't know if they had figured this out because they played on a short week, especially against the Cardinal team that have already beaten them once already. And obviously if the Cardinals do beat the Seahawks, they would own the tiebreaker and win the division. That's assuming if they were tied. So I look at it from a standpoint now. Let's see what the Seahawks are made of. A lot of questions now going on, not only in that offense, but as well as their defense. Now for the Cardinals here, they just got to stick to their game plan. Utilize Murray, establish a running game, and I think the Cardinals will win. But my pick, I know you're all going to hate me for this, and that's totally understandable, but the third week in a row, I'm going with the Seahawks. The Seahawks and Russell Wilson, they play so good at home, even with no crowd. It's hard to underestimate Russell Wilson in that stadium in Seattle. And I really think that the Seahawks will get back on track, but it's going to be a competitive game. Should be a good game for 4 quarters on Thursday Night Football. But I'm going to pick the Seattle Seahawks here. I know you're all going to hate me for that. And I think the Seahawks will get off the schneid here. Russell Wilson is not going to let this team lose 3 straight games. No, in this guy's career. He's had a 2-game losing streak, but throughout his career, he has not had a 3-game losing streak. I don't think that's going to happen. I think Russell Wilson and that Seahawks will get it together. I think, to me, they'll beat the Cardinals here, but it's going to be a competitive game. I expect it to be. And that's when I go with it. The Seahawks minus 3.5, Seahawks over the Cardinals. Key game number 2. It is a huge big one in the AFC West. The Chiefs versus the Raiders. The Chiefs are a huge 7-point favorite in this one here, and I think that number is going to go down more. The way the Raiders have been playing, despite they're playing not so great teams, and especially the fact they barely beat the Chargers 2 weeks ago, and they really destroyed the Broncos. I think this is a game. I think the Raiders are going to hit a brick wall here. Mahomes didn't play last week. I mean, he last played in week number 9. In that week 9 win against the Panthers, 30 of 45, 372 yards, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions. Now, Derek Carr in the big victory over the Broncos, 16 of 25, 154 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions. Everything's going to come down to defense for both these two teams. Offense-wise, they're evenly matched, but I give the slight edge a little bit more to the Chiefs because of Patrick Mahomes and knowing his ability to make plays. The Raiders' defense is going to have to find a way to recreate that magic they did in the first meeting between these two teams in order to stop Patrick Mahomes. But I personally think this is where the Raiders will hit a brick wall here. A lot of you knowing where I'm going to go with this. I'm going with the Chiefs minus 7 here. I really think that the Raiders are going to hit a brick wall. Even though despite that their defense has played fairly well, I still don't trust them. I still don't trust their defense. And knowing ability. I mean, they might have gotten to Patrick Mahomes in the first meeting. I think it's going to be a completely different game this time. I'm going to go with the Chiefs here. I think the Chiefs will barely beat the Raiders. This will be competitive as well, but I'm going with the Chiefs here minus 7, Chiefs over the Raiders. Key game number 3, the Packers versus the Colts. The Colts are a 2.5-point favorite. That number will probably go to 2, maybe a 1.5 towards kickoff. Rodgers in that barely victory he had against the Jaguars, 24-34, 325 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 1 interception. Rivers in that big win against the Titans last Thursday night, 29 of 39, 308 yards, 1 touchdown, and no interceptions. everything is going to come down to offense between these two teams. Defense-wise, they're about evenly matched. Can the Colts defense get to Rodgers? That's the key in this game. Will Rodgers light up some offensive numbers between him against the Colts here? Tough to really say out of this one. Is this going to be a competitive game? Yes, it will. No question this will be a competitive game. The way the Packers are playing right now, you got to wonder what is going on with this football team. They haven't had a statement game all season. And we thought most of the statement games were early in the season, but lately they've just fallen down on the ground. And despite they barely beating the Jaguars last week, now I got a question now, especially with a Colts team that really is no joke. But here's the thing. Rivers just has problems against great quarterbacks. He's always had trouble beating great quarterbacks, whether it's Aaron Rodgers or Tom Brady or Ben Roethlisberger. Let's see what Rivers is made of. Can he look? Last year when he was still with the Chargers last year, he did beat the Packers. Well, that was because the Packers were starting to falter at that time. This is a little different. You got a Colts team that's actually getting a bit cocky here, and a Packer team that's trying to look for a statement win here. Key for this game here: who doesn't turn the ball over, whose offense will step up to the occasion, and pretty much will control the clock here. I'm actually going to go with the Packers here at plus 2.5. I think that the Packers will barely beat the Colts here. Should be a very good competitive game on Sunday, but I'm going to go with the Packers here. I think the Packers will beat the Colts here in a very good game here. Expect this should be a good one here in Indianapolis, but I'm going to go with the Packers here at plus 2.5. Packers over the Colts. And finally, key game number 4, as I mentioned earlier, the Monday night game between the Rams versus the Buccaneers. Buccaneers are a 3.5-point favorite in this one, and don't be surprised if that number actually goes down a little bit. Now, the Bucs had a kind of a statement win last week against the Panthers, even though they should have done it against the Saints, and they didn't do it. Now the question is, this has got to be another statement win for the Buccaneers if they want to really get back into contention. Now, Jared Goff last week with the Rams, a big victory over the Seahawks, 27-37, 302 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions. Tom Brady in that big win last week against the Panthers, 28 of 39, 341 yards, 3 touchdowns, and no interceptions. Can the Rams defense get to Brady? That's the key. That is the main key for the Rams here. They got to get to Brady, because if they don't, Brady will definitely control this football game if that Rams defense doesn't get to Brady here. And I can look at it from a standpoint. For this game for the Rams is to keep in contention in that NFC West to try to take the division now that they beat the Seahawks last week. They still have to play the Cardinals as well. That's coming up very soon. They need their own statement win as well. The question is going to be on the offense. Which offense will come out slinging? Who's going to have the better offense in this game? Who won't turn the ball over, and who will control the clock? Tough to really say. I expect this game to be competitive. Should be a good one on Monday night. But I'm going to go with the Buccaneers here. I think, to me, Tom Brady and that team, they got criticized against the Saints. They shut up the critics last week, and they got to do it one more time against the Rams and hopefully avoid Aaron Donald. But it's going to be tough for the Rams since they lost one of their key defensive linemen and one of the longest ventures on that football team. He hurt himself last week against the Seahawks, so he's pretty much done for the season. So that is another reason why I'm picking the Buccaneers, because defense-wise, the Rams are now stretched thin, and obviously Aaron Donald's going to have to do a little bit more on the defensive line now. But that is why I'm going to go with the Buccaneers. I think the Buccaneers will beat the Rams here. I'm picking the Buccaneers at 3.5. Buccaneers over the Rams. All right, everybody, that wraps up my 4 key game picks for week number 11. For all my week 11 picks, please check the description below, and I'll talk to you guys when I make my picks for week number 12, my Thanksgiving edition. And until then, everybody, take care and enjoy your football weekend.